Let's talk about clones. Clones are the term for when you have a Balisong that is made to look exactly or very, very similarly to another Balisong by a different creator. Let me actually make that a more clear statement. This is a Benchmade 67 clone. This was not made by Benchmade. I actually don't know who it was made by. This is the Microtech Tachyon 2 clone. This is also not made by Microtech. However, this is aluminum opposed to titanium like the original Microtech ones. Clones are a controversial topic because it's kind of like piracy. And piracy is, well, theft. But it's more to it than that. I used to be extremely vehemently anti piracy. And I certainly lean on the side of piracy is not great. However, in terms of digital media, like I love anime. I love anime. Who could have fucking guessed that I love anime? Um, but piracy is something that like a lot of times for so many years anime was streamed illegally. You could torrent it illegally because there was no other way of watching it. And then like Toonami was great, but also Toonami only had several shows. A lot of people discovered Neon Genesis Evangelion and a bunch of other shit. And I grew up watching a lot of things like Yu Yu Hakusho and Rurouni Kenshin, unfortunately, and Naruto. Um, but piracy nowadays has been a little bit more hotly debated because, like, there are more legal streaming services. But we also know that the streaming apocalypse, where everyone is trying to get their own bag, and now it's just cable 2.0. And so then people started to revert back to piracy because it's just cheaper that way. Now, on one hand, it is good to be able to support the legal distribution of anime because it can go back to the people that's actually making it, and that's a whole thing of itself where they're underpaid. But also just like it's like theft. However, when streaming services die or just kill shit and they just remove it off their platforms forever, where can you see it if not on a pirate site? So it's a little bit more complicated, and I know that with things like piracy, it's like uh, it's a matter of accessibility. Some people say that because things are too expensive, that it justifies using the cheaper accessibility options, aka free from piracy. That one's a little complicated, but some other things like, oh, this is literally just not in my country, and the only way I can play it is piracy. Like, okay, you know what? Like, I get it. Apparently, part of the reason why Tekken's secret Pakistani community, which is so fucking good that people didn't know for a long time. There's a guy named Arslan Ash who's like the best Tekken player, and for the longest time was dominated by Koreans. But then this dude flew out from Pakistan to Evo and then won. I think he won, and it was like holy shit. No one knew about this guy, and it turns out Pakistan had the secret community of Tekken players that were super good. And the reason why that no one knew about it is because Tekken 7 was not ever legally distributed to Pakistan. It was a pirate community because that's all they had. And so, like, when your country literally doesn't have access to it, I don't see a problem with it. I also, as a creative who works in video games, especially indie games, and honestly, even big games, piracy can hurt big companies too, as well as especially little companies. Sorry, I've just been bleeding out of this knuckle forever. Um, and essentially, like, it can be frustrating when you put a lot of hard work into something, and then people who just don't feel like paying like $15 for a video game, it can be frustrating. And some people who put a lot of time and energy into making short games, sometimes people are like, oh, it was short enough that I can refund it afterwards. And that's not piracy. It just sucks. But let's go back to Balisongs. So, Balisong clones, it's kind of the equivalent of piracy. I know that was a long-winded start, but it kind of helps explain my viewpoints. And the thing is, Benchmade hasn't made new Balisongs in a while, and a lot of their old Balisongs haven't been in production forever. If you want an authentic Benchmade 67, good luck. I literally don't know anyone selling one currently. I've seen some people sell various other Benchmade products, but like it's not always accessible. You have to do it secondhand, And of course, they're going to be expensive as balls because they haven't been made in fucking forever. And so I got this Benchmade 67 clone as honestly part of a deal sweetener, where I was like trading something for a Reaper, and then I ended up putting up two knives, and so to compensate for like the $50 difference, he added this. And for like $50 value, this Balisong is fucking great. Is Benchmade losing money on this product? No, because they're not making. They haven't made a 67 in I don't know how many fucking years. Like if you wanted to get a 42 clone, one, buying one secondhand, it doesn't affect them anyways, and two, the original sell of that probably is also not affecting them because they haven't made a 42 in freaking forever. Now, a Kraken clone, on the other hand, Squid Industry is very much making Kraken clones. Now, you can complain all you want about Squid Industry's QC issues, of which I think there are some very valid criticisms, but the point of the matter is that if you were to buy a clone of a Squid product, Squid legitimately does take a loss from that because you're not buying it from them and you're not buying it secondhand. I honestly think that, yeah, it's like cheap. It's under $100, but you can get like a Squid. You can get like a Kraken 2.5 for like 150 if you know where to look. It's not that much more expensive. I don't know if the quality is that much better, but it's certainly more ethical, I would say. And like, you want to stick it to the man, I can't stop you. But like in this case, the man is not even like super big greedy corporation, whatever. It's not fucking Walmart. It's just it's one dude who then slowly grew into a company of several dudes. And like, we all know Lucas. Like the Battlesong community is small enough to the point where you just call makers mostly by their first name. Like before Squid Industries existed, Lucas was Squid Master 23 or whatever the fuck. Like he's just been one of us for way longer than I've been in this community. And so like stealing from him feels especially gross in the sense that like you you know him and he's a person that you can actually reach out and talk to. He said my name in the fucking Valley Awards. Whoa, weird. Um, I know that also with JK products, there have been a lot of clones. There have been Orca clones. I actually purchased a G10 Orca clone because it was like $40 and I heard it was good. I don't think JK is currently making G10 Orcas. The G10 Orca is like $200, which I will say is kind of fucking insane. Did I steal from him? I mean, like, only sort of kind of. I also fucking hated the G10 Orca clone and instantly sold it because it was just like. So the thing is, like, a lot of times people say I wouldn't have bought it from them anyways. I would have always gone for the cheapest option, and I guess like, sure, you can do that, but should you? I don't know. It's kind of I think really the onus is also on clone companies and doing copying designs that take a lot of work. The Cygnus is a Balisong that is really intricate, and how it was really groundbreaking with the G10 inlays milled into the titanium, and it's really cool and unique. And then clone companies started making copies, and because LDY is in China, people just started floating a rumor like, oh, the maker of the LDY is friends with the clone company and supported them, which is some bullshit rumor that some kid probably made up and then just started circulating. And then LDY made a statement like, this sucks, and this is actually like really fucking us over, and we put so much time and energy into making the design, and people just copy it. And I don't know the copyright laws in China. I don't really know about how that is. I like and how to enforce that, but like yeah, there are aluminum clones, but then there are also titanium clones, and it's just like, okay, you could get it cheaper, but it's probably a worse product. Usually clones are worse products. I have heard that the clone tsunamis are like as good as the regular tsunamis, and they're like $150, and that's like, it's really tempting. It is really tempting, but I do think that it's not worth supporting clones if you don't have to, and getting clones of Balisongs that have been long out of production. The Microtech Tachyon 2 has been long out of production. The Benchmade knives have been long out of production. And I had like a weird aluminum channel Squiggles clone, like Squiggles rep clone, and it's like it's kind of weird because it's aluminum and it's channel opposed to titanium sandwich. It's like kind of dubious, but it's it's definitely a lot worse. And so it was mostly just like a beater. I'm like, okay, I'm buying like a bundle of cheap knives, and I'm just curious about how they perform. And so like that's kind of like dubious. Like even if you do buy an aluminum version of a titanium knife clone, like I don't know, it's sort of like on the line. I would say that like as someone who has walked that line, I am certainly not 100% innocent, and I don't want to be like the people who are like really judgmental of others and hypocritically, like some people who are like addicted to drugs but look down on people who are addicted to drugs. Like that's fucked up. Um, I don't want to be that person. I don't like to think that I am that person. Um, but it's kind of like a judgment call, and like JK, I think Denden BMX said that JK's business did not get affected by clones, but I've heard from another maker that it very much did affect him. And while I do think that JK charges really high for his products, it does suck. On one hand, it's like as a consumer, that's kind of like that's crazy. As a I'm a freelancer myself. I run my own business. I have an LLC. I'm the sole person of that LLC, and I understand. As a freelancer, you have you have to buy your own health insurance, and you have a lot of overhead and all that shit, and you have to pay taxes like a third of your income. You have to save for taxes. Like I get it, I do. So it's a really complicated line of like being like I think some people overcharge in the community, but I also get it. I really do. So I don't know. I think also in general clones tend to just be worse. I mostly got this Microtech Tac 2 because I wanted a donut knife, and so like I got this for the novelty of donut. And I didn't even hunt for this one; it was a sweetener. So like sometimes clones, you come across them. I don't think you necessarily need to be like super puritanical about it, but like I do think that buying clones directly from clone makers, I generally don't support. I don't buy knives in general new from makers because I am a bargain hunter, but I also have a standard of ethics where I just would rather buy a real Balisong from the real creator to support them than to buy a clone from a clone maker and support theft, because it is theft. It is just stealing a design and outsourcing a cheaper labor thing. Actually, funny enough is that the Vulp almost got cloned, but Nibalis owns the copyright both in America and in China, and so there's only like one clone of the Vulp, and it's like, what's the even point? The Vulp is like $65. You're gonna pay like $20 less for a shitty version of the Vulp. Not that it even came out, but yeah, I don't know. I think I started to see some clones. I feel like I saw a Seraph clone, and it's just like, oh, don't fucking bother. I've seen clones of mostly squid knives and JK knives, but like some people also try and use clones as like a demo. It's like, oh, some people pirate video games, and if they like the video game, they'll buy it. But if they don't like the video game, then they won't. And that's like, on one hand, like, okay, sure, I guess you're spending money more smartly, but you're also still like, I don't know, like demos demos are in general not like a great business system, and so like sometimes you just have to take a chance and hear if something's good, and if you don't like it, that's just how it is. And nowadays you can refund shit on Steam. Some people will try and buy clones to see if they would want to get the real deal, and they're usually not close enough. Like, yeah, they're similar, but they're not necessarily close enough to the actual product that you can be like, yes, this is real. I want a real one. I want the one that's like this, but has the real company making it. It's just you're gonna have a significantly worse experience flipping a clone than you do flipping the real knife. And so I don't know, maybe it'll just turn you off from the real product when you would have liked that to begin with. in my case, I think what you would do, because you can't really demo knives, I try and do temp trades a lot. You know, I love temp trades. It takes a lot of the pressure off of being like, oh God, do I really want this knife? You know, like, you know, and knives are expensive. Like, do we really want to go out on this deal? But sometimes you're like, hey, I have, me personally, like, I have a quite a large library of knives, and I'm more than willing to let people try my knives. I just like to be able to try other things in return, and it also lets me, you know, I love like basically the reason why I make this channel is because I love trying Balisongs. I love the differences in between them, and I love thinking about and talking about it, how they all feel. And so just even if it's something that's like not necessarily super expensive or whatever, I'm still like excited to try new things, and of course I can then make content. Wow, content farming. Um, so I don't know. The point is though, is that like it costs about $20 total to do a temp trade. You know, if you're doing priority shipping, and you can try some cool things. And a lot of times it's like, oh, I have some, you know, I'll be like, oh, you have this knife. I'm more than willing to trade two knives, you know. Or sometimes people are like, oh, like, can I temp trade you this really, you like, you have a really expensive knife, but I don't have anything as much as that. I'm like, oh, that's fine. If you know, if you want to temp trade things of like equal value, then typically people be like, I'm gonna sell like these four knives for an orca, and it's like two krakens and like something else, and like no one's gonna want that. In general, no one wants to. No one's gonna be like, oh yes, these are equal value. I will absolutely sell my grail for like these four knives, two of which are like worth $150. No, it doesn't really work like that. But for a temp trade, it could theoretically, in the sense that like, yeah, I'm a lot more willing to temporarily part with one knife for like a week and a half or whatever if you give me several knives. In my case, it also helps because then I can, you know, make videos and more things. um, but anyways, I think that's a much more ethical of a try before you buy. It's also cheaper than buying a clone. You do have to find someone, but if you just add Balisong Market and you say in search of blah, willing to like looking to temp trade for whatever, you might find someone. And you know, I've done that. I'd be like, I'm looking to temp trade, and people say, I have this. What do you have? And I show, here's my entire collection, and they go, oh, I'm interested in these knives, and I say, you can borrow both or three of them. Like, do you have anything else that you would really loan? And sometimes you just temp trade like three knives for three knives or whatever. Not even everyone has that, but also meetups are a great way. I know that not everyone lives around other Balisong flippers, especially right now in January. It is cold, and I don't want to go outside and flip knives in the fucking snow. But you know, meetups are as a way that I tried a bunch of knives. Like, I don't think I would have tried a Paradigm if it wasn't for the meetup, or a Benchmade 87, or a fucking oh, I don't know. There's so many things like the Sentinel and the Segai Howard knives that I tried at the meetup, and it was, you get to try a lot of really cool things. And so personally, I think that if that was your excuse, temp trading would just be a better use of your money anyways, if you can find someone. And it's also a good way of building up references, so that like I have a fuck ton of references because I've just bought so many and sold so many knives that like, if you are like, hey, I don't really have a lot of references, but I'm willing to like ship first, and then you can ship next to someone. You can exchange references, and it's a good way of building up like social credit. Also, anyways, clones. I don't necessarily know if they're worth it. I know someone who buys clones up the wazoo and then they sell them, and someone is like, they just buy clones because they want a lot of mediocre knives opposed to like a couple of good ones. And you can get cheap good knives too that are not clones, but I don't know. It's, at the end of the day, a lot of people in this community are not necessarily those who are old enough to have jobs, and so they're a little bit more limited in what they can get. But still, I don't know. I think it's more worth it to get a fucking Bally's knife than a clone of a Kraken. Like, I just don't see the point of getting a clone Kraken when the real one's not that much more expensive. Anyways, this has been my sort of thoughts. If anyone asks me about clones, I can just send them this video. Watch it at 2.0 speed. I don't give a fuck. And yeah, like this video, share it with your friends. If you have any thoughts on clones, let me know. I know you have thoughts about clones. Let me know your thoughts on clones in the comments. You think I'm full of shit? Tell me. You think I have good opinions and I have impeccable taste and I'm very pretty? Tell me. Check out the coffee in the description. Help me support making videos, and happy flipping, everyone. Bite handle indicators prevent you from getting this fucking bloody knuckle that I've been dealing with this entire video.